In the fog of war, how is serious wrongdoing, such as atrocities against civilians, tracked, sourced, and reported to the world? An open source digital investigative group known as Bellingcat came to prominence for their work tracking down Russian assassins and uncovering a massacre in Ethiopia. And now they've put the focus on war torn Ukraine. One of those right in the thick of it is a Canadian. Giancarlo Fiorella is a senior investigator at Bellingcat, and he joins us now from Amsterdam, Netherlands, for more. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
All right, so Bellingcat is the name of the organization. It's in reference to a fable about a group of mice who decide the best way to deal with a murderous cat is to attach a bell to it so it can no longer sneak up on them. Of course, you're not really working with cats and mice here. Can you break it down for us? What is Bellingcat exactly?
Yeah, so Bellingcat is, as you say, based on this philosophy that unfortunately there are lots of cats in the world. They're governments, they are big corporations, they are military groups, and there's also lots of mice. So just ordinary folks like us who had a lot of time, a lot of free time, and were able to put their free time to use in order to discover important things about what these big players were doing. And so Bellingcat is really an organization that works with open source information. That's any type of information that you can freely find on the internet. And what makes it really powerful is that because anyone has access to this data, anyone can contribute to investigations. Anybody can help uncover wrongdoing that these big actors are doing around the world. And so in that sense, I think it's quite revolutionary.
All right, so since 2014, you guys have had quite a few successes in terms of the information and data and work that you've been able to do. Walk me through some of those.
Sure. So one of the earliest investigations that Bellingcat, I think, rose to prominence on was the investigation into the shoot down of MH17. This was a Malaysian airliner's flight that was shot down over eastern Ukraine in 2014, just a few days after Bellingcat was founded, actually. And so the early Bellingcat community, the early Bellingcat researchers, they were able to trace using information that they were finding on the internet, social media posts, and other data that was online. They were able to trace the equipment, the military piece of equipment that shot down this airplane. And so they were able to determine that it had entered into eastern Ukraine from Russia, that it had in fact fired this missile that shot down the airplane, and then it had sort of snuck back into Russia after that. And again, this was done using information that often the Russian soldiers and the separatist soldiers who were moving this piece of equipment around were taking and sharing online themselves. So that was I think the first big investigation that Bellingcat worked on.
You also did some work in Ethiopia as well. I want to hear about that.
Correct. Yeah. So last year we worked on an investigation that discovered the location of a massacre that had taken place in Ethiopia. And this was based on a set of videos that surfaced on social media, first on an app called Telegram and then on Twitter, that if you watch them, appear to show soldiers executing a group of civilians and throwing their bodies off of a cliff. Now, the claim when these videos first came out was that it had taken place somewhere in Ethiopia, maybe somewhere in a place called Mabere Dago. And at Bellingcat, a big part of the work that we do has to do with verifying videos and pictures, because as you know, there's tons of recycled videos out there that don't really show what people claim to show. So applying the methodology that Bellingcat has helped to develop to verify footage, we were able to determine exactly where this massacre took place, to confirm that it was near a town called Mabere Dago. And based on that, we were able to make other determinations, including the fact that the massacre was likely carried out by the Ethiopian army.
All right, let's do a little deep dive into the actual Bellingcat website and what people can actually see. So we're going to take a look at the work you've been doing around Ukraine for almost a year now. This map allows regular people to record incidences that have led to civilian death and harm during the war in Ukraine and where civilian infrastructure has been destroyed. So thinking about hospitals, schools, apartment buildings, potential war crimes here. So the purple circles here that you see on your map here show where incidences have taken place. The larger purple circles indicate a higher concentration of incidences. I want to zoom in, and we're going to have a look at Kiev here. Tell us what we're looking at, because we have a map here, and then on to the right, we have some images. And this particular incident took place October 10th. Tell us what we're looking at.
So what you're looking at there is a verified incident that took place in Kiev within the course of the wars, the latest chapter of the war that began in February. And so since then, what Bellingcat has been doing alongside a group of volunteers that we have incorporated into our processes and whom we've trained to help us with this is that we're going out onto the internet and we're finding any video, any picture, any visual evidence that shows, as you say, potential war crimes, any harm against civilians or civilian infrastructures. So what we do when we first discover these images is that we archive them so that they don't get deleted and then they sort of disappear forever. And then we verify them. And that means that we determine precisely exactly where they were taken. And once we've done that, we can get a sense for when they were captured. And then based on that, we can analyze them. We can try to determine what kind of munition was used in this particular incident, what was the infrastructure that was hit, if there were any civilian casualties, how many there were. And so all of those points are set on this map for anyone to access and take a look at the devastating effect that the war has had on civilians and civilian infrastructure in Ukraine.
Can you give us a sense of the sheer amount of incidences that you and your team have been sent over the last year?
So we have a significant backlog. I think with over 2,000 individual pieces of evidence at the moment. And so far, I believe we've cleared, that is to say, we've verified approximately, I think it's about 850, 900, not quite 1,000 yet. And that's because the verification process can be quite involved. Again, we want to be 100% sure that those pictures are from Ukraine, that they're from the time that they claim to be from, and we want to know exactly what has happened. So that process can take quite some time, sometimes days or weeks. And so you multiply that for every single piece of evidence that we have, and of course you have a project that can last a long time. So we're talking about thousands of individual pieces of evidence so far.
On that note, you talk about the amount of hours that it takes to go through one image or one video. How can you be sure that these incidences aren't actually real or they're not doctored or staged?
So there's a number of tools that we employ and a number of different techniques that we employ to make sure that that's not the case. So one phenomenon that is quite common when you're working with visual materials online is that an image will be recycled. So for example, you might see a tweet that somebody says, "Hey, I just took this picture this morning. It's in Kiev, and this just happened right now." One simple technique that you can employ is that you can do what's called a reverse image search. So you can essentially try to find where else on the internet does that image exist. And sometimes you find that actually that picture that is supposedly from this morning was taken 3 years ago, and you see that there's an article that references that picture from 3 years ago. So that's one of the steps that we employ to make sure that the images that we're looking at are actually new, that they're recent, that they're from the conflict in Ukraine.
I do have to ask this, even though you are not there witnessing it on the grounds in front of you, I have to imagine seeing this stuff. Does it, so much carnage, does it take a toll on you?
Yeah, it does, and this is something that at Bellingcat we take a lot of effort to mitigate, to understand, and that is the effect, the potential negative effect that viewing this content repeatedly has on somebody's mental health. So I've been working on this particular project since February. Since then, I've been working more generally with open source data from conflicts for a number of years. And you're right, there's no comparison to actually being there. But I have felt, and I know that my colleagues have as well, the negative effects of just being constantly exposed to this. So there's a lot of internal processes that we have at Bellingcat. Thankfully, we're supported by our organization. They provide mental health services that we can rely on if we feel like we need them.
All right, I want to change gears a little bit. We've figured out how we get these videos, how you guys archive them, and how you're able to track them back to, who did it and where it is. I want to see, how can we use this in court, or what can actually happen here? What are the chances that these hundreds of videos and pictures of civilians' death can actually be admissible in a court of law? Take, for example, the International Criminal Court.
I think the chances are quite high. The International Criminal Court, in particular, as well as other courts around the world, they have increasingly signaled that they understand really clearly that these pictures, these videos on Twitter, on Telegram, on TikTok, they're not just videos; they're really evidence. And in many cases, they might be the only pieces of evidence that a cluster munition was dropped on a school or that a mass grave was discovered somewhere. Because you have to remember, not just in Ukraine, but in lots of places around the world, it might just be too dangerous to send out investigators physically, or they might only reach these areas years and years after the conflict has taken place. So the trend that we've seen, again, not just at international legal instances, but also at national courts, in particular in Germany, is that courts are increasingly recognizing how important digital investigations are to producing evidence that could be admissible in court. So we're quite hopeful that this project is going to inform legal processes in the future.
Actually, let's pick up on that. Can you give us that particular example in Germany where that data actually did work?
Yeah, so this was a case that took place in Germany relatively recently, and it had to do with the assassination of a dissident from Russia who was in Germany, and he was killed in a German park. And Bellingcat actually conducted an investigation that revealed his actual identity and his connections to the Russian state. And this evidence was used in court in the trial of this individual. He was arrested and charged with this murder. And part of the trial involved, again, these findings that Bellingcat investigators, my colleagues, made in this case. And so we know already in this particular case, in this one particular case, that a court has admitted digital evidence that's been processed through the methodology that we've helped to develop at Bellingcat and has used it as admissible evidence in a trial.
It's still very clear, though, that the courts seem to be behind on this open source data. How close do you think we are in having international rules that lay out how we probably collect, archive, and present data from conflict zones for war crime prosecutions?
So I think we're maybe further along than we might think. There's a really great group of scholars who are based in the Human Rights Center at Berkeley, at UC Berkeley. They're led by scholars like Alexa Koenig, who are lawyers, international lawyers, and also who are people who've recognized the value of open source digital investigations. And so they put together something that's called the Berkeley Protocol. And this came out, I believe, in late 2019 or early 2020. And this is a protocol that lays out exactly every single step that you need to take as an investigative team to locating, archiving, analyzing, and then presenting evidence that you collect via these methods precisely for the purposes of presenting it in court. So this is a really big project. This Berkeley Protocol was something that had a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people contributed to it. And I would say that this is definitely the sort of the first code book that exists out there to help somebody like a prosecutor set up a team of digital investigators to find evidence of, for example, potential war crimes and then present them in court.
What I noticed is you don't call yourself a journalist, and I've read that you don't call yourself a journalist, but I want to ask you, do you consider yourself a citizen journalist at all?
I would say probably closer to citizen journalist than a journalist. I'm sort of hung up on on that idea, and I do talk a lot about it a lot because I don't have any formal training in journalism. I didn't really set out to become a journalist. I'm fully cognizant of the fact that a lot of the work that I do is journalistic. I conduct an investigation, I ask questions, I answer them, and I present them on a website that people click on and read. Right. So that's totally journalism. But I think what makes Bellingcat interesting is that we don't just do that. We also do all kinds of other activities that aren't really journalistic. We do a lot of training for other folks, like journalists, for example, on how to do this kind of work. We do a lot of community engagement. We're really involved in teaching people how to do this so that they can learn how to do it themselves. And so I suppose as a kind of a citizen journalist is really passionate about this methodology and about the fact that anyone can do this if they sit down and try to learn it. Yeah, that's what I see myself as, more than like let's say a traditional journalist.
I think it's fair to say that you and your organization is filling some gaps. Journalism outlets just simply can't afford to keep foreign bureaus open. They increasingly don't have boots on the ground journalists many countries away in terms of reporting. Do you feel like you're filling that gap?
I think that we're definitely doing something that complements like boots on the ground journalism. And for the reasons that you've outlined, like sometimes it's just prohibitively expensive if you have a newsroom to send people out. Or as I mentioned earlier, maybe it's too dangerous to send people out, or you just have no access to an area. So when Bellingcat started in 2014, we were probably the first people who were doing this sort of in an organized, kind of serious way. But since then, lots of newsrooms have said, hey, the work that Bellingcat is doing is fantastic. We want to be able to do that kind of thing ourselves as well. And so, for example, now you have the New York Times Visual Investigations team, which is fantastic, and they do incredible work. The Washington Post has a visual forensics unit, which works with digital open source information. CNN also has a digital investigations unit. And I think that increasingly over time, that's going to be the trend, that more and more newsrooms are going to recognize this is a really viable avenue to make important discoveries about what's happening in the world. And they're going to want to invest in setting up these units like the New York Times have done, like CNN has done, like the Washington Post has done.
In terms of traditional media, this is sort of a barrier and obstacle that journalists have been facing. Only 15% of Canadians surveyed in an Ipsos poll last year said that they had a great deal of trust and confidence in traditional media. You're not traditional media, and you say you're not even media. You are part of a team of regular people. Is there a chance that the public could wind up trusting you more than journalists?
I'd love to see a survey that does a comparative study of, who do you trust more? Is it the New York Times or Bellingcat? I'd be really curious to see what the results are. But I will say that there's something special about the way that Bellingcat engages again with information that anybody can find, even the reader, especially the reader, and also in the way that we present our findings. So not only is our data open, so again, anybody can click on the links and see for themselves, oh yes, I see that that's the picture that you're working with, for example, but also when we present the results of an investigation, we don't just tell you, we did an investigation, here's what we found. We very meticulously take the reader step by step through every single link, every single picture, every single bit of analysis that we conducted. So by the end of the article, hopefully the reader doesn't have to trust us because they see for themselves, okay, you've done all your math. I've followed every single step and I agree with the conclusion. So I think that's something that's maybe a little bit special to Bellingcat. And I hope that that leads to an increased sense of trust from the readership that we have.
I got to say that you probably have tons of friends on your side in terms of the work you do, but you also have tons of enemies. And I want to mention friends. One former CIA deputy chief said that they loved Bellingcat for the work that you do. You've also, and your organization has been accused online for working for the CIA, that you choose investigations that are that have a very Western slant to them. What's your response to those people?
Let me just say, we're not friends with the CIA or with that particular person. I know the quote that you're mentioning, and it's we were nervous when we saw that because we don't have any contact with them, and it caught us off guard that they would say that about us. I would say that there is sort of an institutional momentum inside Bellingcat to do research on Russia. So that's one thing. Again, the very first big investigation that Bellingcat worked on involved the Russian government sending a missile launcher to Ukraine and then resulting in the killing of a plane load full of people. So starting from that, there's a sort of an institutional momentum that's built so that we're looking at Russia, we're continuing to look at Russia really just based on that first investigation. There's something also particular to Russia that makes it more prone to this kind of analysis. The Russian civil service is really leaky. And so if you are a Russian citizen, chances are all of your personal information is on the internet because it's been leaked over the years by civil servants who are looking to make extra money. And that goes even for spies. And so that's something that's unique to Russia and something that again makes it particularly, I wouldn't say easy, but it makes it more prone to be the kind of place where you can do research on for example, spies, and find out lots of details about them in a way that you can't really do with the United States or with Canada or with other Western countries.
I do have to ask, has the Russian state ever tried to retaliate?
So we have had a number of cyber attacks conducted against us. They're called spear phishing attacks. So this is when you get an email in your inbox and it looks like it's an email from Google or like from your bank, and you can't tell the difference. You can't tell that it's actually a fake email. And so the idea with these emails is that they say, "Hey, Giancarlo, this is Google. Your account has been compromised. Click on this link and we'll help you fix it." And when I click on the link, the attacker will get access to my data. So we have been subjected to those kinds of attacks. We have a relationship with the Citizen Lab at the University of Toronto. They're a fantastic group of people out there. And whenever we get one of those weird looking emails, we'll send it to them, and then they'll take a look at it, and then they'll tell us, yeah, this looks like it might be from the Russian government. So that's happened a couple of times. Not just the Citizen Lab, but we have other organizations that are in cybersecurity that help us make these determinations. So we can't be 100% sure, but from what these experts have told us over the years, there have been a couple of incidents where it looked like entities connected to the Russian government were trying to essentially hack our emails to get into all of our data.
We have a few seconds left, but I do have to ask because I feel like there are going to be people who are listening or watching to this interview and be like, how do I get involved? If I'm unable to get to, say, the front lines of this war in Ukraine, if I want to be able to volunteer with Bellingcat or do something, what's sort of the process?
So we have a volunteer program. It's called the Global Authentication Project. And right now we are training people on how to do what I just told you that we were doing, finding images, archiving them, verifying them coming from Ukraine. So if you just email volunteer@bellingcat.com, you'll be put in touch with our volunteer coordinator. There's a waiting list, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, because it shows that lots of people are interested in helping out. But at some point, we'd love to be able to get back to you and onboard you so that you can help us do this kind of work and also work on other projects.
Giancarlo, thank you so much. Really great stuff. And again, thanks for joining us on the program tonight.
Thank you so much.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.